Okay. Как se
Извините, da li ste tematski birali majicu?
Da, svoje. A ja ću Hi everyone, my name is Vladimir Popov, and for a solid amount of time, for the past decade, I have been coloring comic books, mostly for American comic publishers, with a few adventures in European scenes as well. And besides coloring comics, right now I'm writing a doctoral dissertation on comic books as well, as part of my experience in the field of arts. And because I'm primarily doing comic book coloring, I'm going to talk a little bit about my process and how do I do that for various projects and publishers. Okay, here I posted a slide which explains the basics of coloring, because coloring is a different process than drawing, and we use a different approach and tools and techniques when we are doing color design. And here we pretty much have summarized everything that coloring is about. We have like separation of colors. We have the primary, the secondary, the tertiary colors. We have the psychology of colors. You know what specifically which color means. You know, red is action, orange is happiness, yellow is appetite, green is neutral, blue is kind of like calm, violet is mystique, suspense. For example, Hitchcock liked to use violet in his movies when he wanted to accent some suspenseful scenes. And in overall, these are the tools that colorists use in order to create color composition on a page, to create an atmosphere, to create a mood, and overall artistic direction. Okay, let's go on the next slide. So we're going to show my process of coloring one page of a comic book. Okay. So I have a few phases when it goes to coloring. First phase is preparation of a comic book page. Most of the times that means that we have the special kind of formatting and special kind of preparation for my file, which I'm going to get either from a writer or artist, or most of the times the publisher. They're preparing the pages with the dimensions and everything else for print in advance, so that I don't have to think about it and just dive into coloring. And this is how it looks. And the prepared page. We have gutters, we have the bleed, the margin, everything is prepared. This is the area where all the line art and everything that happens on the page is happening. This is the line that you see as the end of the page in a comic book, and this is when it comes from printing. So these are important so that we know how to position stuff before the printing process. So that's step one in my coloring. Next. Step two is flattening the page. This is a process where the colorists are extracting all of the shapes from a page, you know, whether you block the characters or background or elements on a page, where we kind of designed the basic composition in color, you know, how the page is going to look, and preparing it for the next session. In essence, it's the point in this part most of the time is to make it finished as well. If we can have like a whole page looking like it's finished in flat coloring, we did a good job as colorists. So that's usually around 1 hour less, more or less, in a timestamp when the colorists are preparing. Sometimes these are things that assistants are doing, especially when we have like a deadline or a tight schedule or something. Then I hired few times assistants who did this for me, and this is how it looks. So this is how the flatted page looks. All the elements are blocked. There is a color for everything. There isn't much composition. There isn't much coherence or anything. As the meaning of this type of coloring is for me to, when I go in a Photoshop or a software, that when I click on an element, I get that element quickly selected so that I can fill in the color that I want and go on with next process of it, so that I can rearrange the page and design everything that I want to design the way I want to see it. So that's the flattening stage. Okay. Okay. The third phase is something they call rendering, meaning painting in the shapes, the flats. Here I play with the shadows, I play with the lights, the composition in a little bit more advanced level. And here I decide how much light sources will be, where they will come from, how I'm going to position all of that, and how is that going to affect each panel separately, as well as the whole page, as well as the whole episode and the whole left model. So this is the second phase, which is kind of more like more creative, more free flow, and more designerish. And how that looks, this is how it looks. As you see, this is a different page. Here I rendered lightning. We have shadows, we have lighting. I positioned the light over here, so it goes there. And the background. For this particular series, this was a horror comedy, and we decided to go kind of like mundane, realistic approach. So I used Norman Rockwell as a source of inspiration, things from the everyday mundane life when you go outside in the garden and how it looks, with clear day and everything, and a few more things that I found out from YouTube interviews about some criminals that I tried to mimic the feeling that I had from watching those documentaries online. I tried to put that into a comic as well. That casual feeling of kind of fear, but not so much. Unease, unsettling feeling that you see when you look serial killer on television. Let's go to the next one. And here we have a preparation of that. This is the flat, this is the finished, so you can see the differences between the stages and how I formed the final page. Okay, now this is the next. This is something that I like to call the phase of special effects. Here I use custom-made brushes that I made, or I found out on the internet, that I applied to my work, that are bringing additional elements that were not in drawing before. So this is me painting in over the line art, like for example, weather effects like fog, like rain, dust, fire cracking, and all of that stuff. I put additional textures and other particle effects and special effects that you see sometimes in video games, lightning and overglow, overbrightening stuff, over the coloring of the line art and that kind of stuff where you see in the comic book, the glows and additional stuff. That's it. And here we have an example. This was the line art that I was given. This was for a cover, for a top cow book. This was everything that I had. The brief was we have a bad weather and it's night, early night, late night. It wasn't specified, so I had to paint in the ocean, the bad weather. I used 3 different sets of custom-made brushes that I made for rain and dust and speckles. I painted in the lightning. I painted in all these spherical special effects of spaceship and I played with the overall composition of blue hue monochromatic tones to create a really cold and unpleasant weather on a page. And also I did Dutch angle to have dramatic composition and dramatic storytelling on a cover. So that's the particle effect, the glow is the additional stuff that I put in. Phase 5 is the control phase, when I finish everything and I finish the whole issue and I go over all the pages again to see if everything is balanced, if everything is the way I want it to be, if I want to additionally change the mood, if some page is going a little bit offset and is slightly more saturated or more toned down, or isn't following exactly the color, emotional coloring tone that I wanted to have. So I go over everything, and then when I finish that, I go to phase 6, which is exporting for print and the web and internet, where I send the pages to the creative team and editors, and we go on the control. We go on the last set of feedback, and everything is okay. Upload on the server, and it goes to print, and that's it. The page is done. And the issue is done. So let's see how that is applied to different type of economies I worked on. So let's see the creative direction that I used in a few pages. Okay. Here, this is one of the first. This is actually the first page that I ever colored for Waco. It's 14 years ago. And Marko gave me a specific task to go and have the Prince Valiant vibe, but in a contemporary way. And Ariachki did the pencils and Mazi did the inks. Marko did the script and the coloring and lettering. And here we try to do a flat coloring. I did actually try to mimic the old school coloring where I put the whites as a lightning glows. That was the idea, because 80 years ago when they colored Prince Valiant and Flash Gordon and all those other old comic books, they basically painted with whites, the highlights. So I wanted to emulate that to that page. Here we had, this was a completely different project. This is a cartoonish project, kind of like a cartoonish parody, kind of like a Adult Swim stuff. And I completely went flat coloring, cartoonish coloring, bright, happy, strong, emotional colors, because that was kind of like adventure story, so I wanted to have that overall tone of the whole cartoonish kind of style story. The third page was a horror page where we wanted to do surrealistic coloring approach, and that's why I did the weird, not so common look on the ambient and the backgrounds and the characters. I wanted to portray them differently and to make it something kind of like uncanny and uneasy and surrealistic, so I went for Salvador Dali for some inspiration in that one. Okay. Here we have fantasy. This is a cover. Here actually I play with the color theory a lot. This is an urban fantasy story, and this is the main character. He's a writer, and this is the muse, and I wanted to make the muse gold. That is the idea. And this is the imaginary realm of Fearscape, which is in the background, and I wanted to make it purple because it's mysterious, it's imaginary. And there we have like the functional primary color yellow compositional colors, which is yellow and purple, which are complemented each other perfectly, and that's what I wanted to create here. This was a manga that was based on one American hip hop band, Hilltop Hoods, and the band is kind of like an industrial hip hop, and the manga was also industrial science fiction, so I went with the industrial palette. It's dreary, moody, toned down, very dry, neutral coloring. Most greens, most blues, most hues, and that kind of stuff, in order to create that industrial vibe. I looked a little bit of 9-inch nails for inspiration because they have industrial lives. Third page is the page from a French album that I did, and that one is pretty natural and neutral, and we went with the basic coloring. That's what the overall art direction was, to go with basics and try to mimic French style as much as possible. And here we have another set, Hellraiser. This was mostly blues and hues because it had to be like distant and cold and unemotional because it's hell, and it had a standard. So that was a project we went there. This was the Highlander. That is the iconic scene when he gets the power, and we used the creative direction that tried to mimic the color palette from the movie. And the last one is RoboCop, the latest one from 2013 from the movie, where we had the new design, so we had to follow basically the new design, and that's what we tried to do there, just to mimic the movie and the composition and everything. And that one was pretty easy to do because we already had everything mapped, so we just had to do it in. And, that's about it. Next. And there we go. Thank you very much. Cut.
Color theory. Yeah.